Okay, so think about this for a second. How can we be sure that a book or a package that we receive in life from the Creator, maybe it's in the form of a book, maybe it's in the form of some wisdom, how can we evaluate something to identify its quality in accordance with a measuring instrument or a unit that is, in fact, the truth? So what I'm saying is that it's actually very interesting that over the years now, there is one particular book that I have received from two very important people. And the wisdom set forth in this book, it's essentially miraculously and legitimately, magically accurate to the point where I ask myself, how could this knowledge and this wisdom in this book be in a book that's separate from the Holy Bible, essentially, right? Well, what happens is that, see, you have to zoom out and think for a second about the fact that there's a particular blessing, and it goes like this. It says, "Blessed are you, Hashem," or the four-letter name, right? "Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who bestows benefits and kindnesses upon his people Israel." So in other words, the Creator is always blessing us with different good things on the way, including books that actually have legit wisdom in them. So now, look, the way that you actually identify what is true is by having a certain amount of wisdom that then gives you the ability to check the truthfulness of a theory or information or even a book or some document and what's expressed therein. See, if you have wisdom, and even wisdom as simple as this, someone presents something to you, yeah? You then safely experiment with the information presented, and it turns out to be that it works. Look, what that is that's essentially a scientific experiment that you then performed, and you later evaluate the data from your scientific experiment, and you determine what is really going on in that process. Now, what has to be said at this point is the fact that, look, even so, because life is cyclical, even with scientific experiments, right, there's essentially a time when the experiment will go like this, and it will go like that. And so there's a major problem that exists within modern day so-called science and those things that are like scientific studies, allegedly, of different things. The reason I say allegedly is because most of the time they're not actually completely informed of the details of how life works and why their scientific studies go the way that they go, and the data is how it is. What I'm saying is that because life is cyclical, and because there are different life cycles, even 7 different daily periods every day, whereof there are 7 a day, the coincidental factor that this scientific study, for example, of this happened, at this time, it already determines what will become of that study because of the life cycles and the period that it was in. So look, folks, what I'm saying is that if you're going to do a scientific study of something, yeah, and this is generally what happens, for example, so this and this and this vitamins, this and this nutrients and minerals, if you take them for 3 months every day, twice a day, generally a scientific study concludes that what happens is, well, it leads to this and this result. 20 people over the age of 30 ingested this, what is it? These vitamins and minerals prescribed in this amount every day. And after 3 months, positive changes were observed as regarding to, et cetera, et cetera. So these type of things. So the problem is, look, most of the scientific studies being conducted nowadays are actually very random, and they're producing random results that still is of a systematic origin, yet the systematic nature of life has to be studied and investigated first. What I'm saying is that there's a time when a study based on the cycles of life that it's in will result in a certain thing, and it won't. And knowing this then explains to us a lot of, so the data is there. Look. Having a certain amount of wisdom, you can actually look at the world and the events and know why they are how they are at any given point in time, based on having wisdom and knowing the fact that life is cyclical. So you could show me the news and I could look at it and say, okay, I know why that's like that. I know why this country has been fighting against this country for over 3 years now. Instead of just having, there's an explanation for everything out there and how come and why it is the way that it is right now with wisdom. So if they tell you, if one says, look, we did a scientific study on the benefits of, what is it? This and this and this thing being, whatever, like a health increasing method or whatever. And they have this, they have these things like this summary that says, a group of adults, was monitored for 6 months, and every day they exercised for 1 hour, and then etc. And then this led to a 60% increase in testosterone levels. Yeah, listen, see, whenever you're observing nature, even if you're conducting a scientific study, if you do not have the most circumspect and total and complete overview of nature and how it works systematically, then you're only seeing fractions of the bigger picture. So I could actually prove this theory and this, what I'm saying, I could prove this objectively by detailed investigation and mapping of certain data, and also explain why certain data is the way it is because of when it was and how it was produced. Yeah? So we're talking about absolute accuracy in the scientific and thereby practically applying wisdom operation of life. So why am I saying this? Why am I sharing this? Because I happen to know something about life that you should also know, so that your life may be very good. This could be applied to all humans, okay? The thing is, see, now, for example, So look, think about this for a second, right? Let's say you've got an interest in improving or increasing your health. So whatever therapeutic method, whatever health increasing sort of a thing you're going to be creatively active with and accomplishing, whatever mode of therapy or whatever it is, whether it's vitamins, minerals, natural foods that are clean, exercise, sports, etc., whatever it is, whatever it is, there's a time when it is going to work. There is a time when it is not going to work. Knowing these, knowing these times makes a difference between whether or not it will actually work and also you being able to actually make it work. It's almost like knowing that, okay, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. it's going to be dark hours, and then from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. it's going to be light hours, and you have to be able to see when you're in the woods, so you go out during the day and not during the night. There's things like this. So yeah, see the book and the link in the description that I've attached here.